Right now, it's only Elliot and I. But that's okay because it's still the Team of Rivals podcast for Thursday, April 23rd. It's week 5 of the quarantine. Ron has figured out most of our technical issues, but he's working behind the scenes to eliminate an echo that he's got going on his end. He'll be joining us in a second. E, what have you been up to in the last 7 days? It's draft night.
It is draft night.
It kind of feels like a real week, man. It's draft night. We had the first 2 episodes of The Last Dance. We're winding up the final arc of the Clone Wars. It almost feels like normal life, man.
I actually worked this week.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was there 3 days this week.
Nice. So you guys aren't probably doing any selling, are you? Like any face-to-face individual selling? It's mostly just online pickup, right?
6 foot. Some people will come into the festival. And if there's something that they weren't sure that they wanted and they wanted to talk to someone, we will sell. So, but they can't come into the store. They just gotta trust us on what we are going to sell them. So.
And you would never ever steer them wrong, would you?
Absolutely not.
So, I mean, you've got all those things. You've got The Last Dance.
Mm-hmm.
Got draft night tonight, even though the Bears don't have a pick. At least we don't think they have a pick. They could trade up.
Could.
You went to work. We've got the beginning of Elliot's echoing.
Yep.
And we've got the beginning of the final arc of the Clone Wars. What was the highlight of the last 7 days?
Clone Wars. Well, actually, The Last Dance was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I had the boy over here, and we were having a great night, and so I wasn't stressing over the time. But he went to bed about 9 o'clock, and I immediately turned on episode 2, and then of course immediately stayed up so that I could replay episode 1, and then I had to finish it off with episode 2 again. Now that I had the continuity. That was phenomenal. It was like I was 25 years old again, man. It was great.
Yeah, I wasn't quite that old, but I was. I remember a lot because I was a teenager in the 90s. So I remember all 6 championships. I remember, Jordan coming out and beating the draft. I mean, I was really young. I remember how excited everybody was.
Yeah.
So after watching the first 2 episodes, I felt like people could understand why people our age are like, Jordan is the GOAT. LeBron doesn't hold the candle to him.
Yeah,
and over the next few weeks, they will understand even more.
Yeah, I wonder how many minds this whole series is going to change when people actually see just what he did. I heard. Can't remember who it was that I was listening. Oh, it was Adam Carolla. I was listening to his Tuesday podcast today because that's how far behind I am. And he made an excellent point. Jordan went through everybody to get to the top, right? Like he went through Hall of Famers. He had to beat the Celtics. He had to beat the Lakers. He had to beat the Pistons. He had to beat Clyde Drexler and the Trailblazers. He had to beat arguably the most consistent team of the 90s in the Utah Jazz. Who had back-to-back 60-win seasons. He had to beat Gary Payton and Sean Kemp. I mean, you had Charles Barkley on a loaded Phoenix Suns team. You look at the teams that the Bulls had to beat to get to the top and all the Hall of Famers that were on those teams, and then you compare it with – and the fact that when he got to the finals, he did not lose. 6 for 6. LeBron can't claim that level of winning. I mean, you look at that, there's just no comparison. He's the GOAT.
Absolutely.
He's the GOAT. Like Tom Brady looks at him and says, "You're good."
Brady's got to bring tight ends out of retirement.
Yeah. Good point. He's good enough to bring a tight end out of retirement. Excellent point. And apparently to just get a slap on the wrist for breaking social distancing rules because he went to a closed park. I tell you what, if you didn't have somebody who I think was completely swollen on her own power in this, we probably never would have heard of it. We never would have heard that he was practicing in an empty park by himself.
No,
but
no.
She had to mention it at at her press conference. Oh, I'm normally not somebody who shares gossip, but we kicked Tom Brady out of the park the other day. Look at me. You know?
Pretty ridiculous.
Yep. Sam Smith, are you sure you were the bulls in your driveway every night, or were you writing stories about Michael Jordan? Because I have something that might indicate that you weren't just in your driveway. I had to explain to the boy who Michael Jordan was. He didn't know. I mean, he kind of knew. He said, he's like the best basketball player ever, right, Dad? I said, yeah, you could say that. He said, yeah, I don't know. I said, let me show you. And I went to the shelf here where I've got like 8 books about Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Anyway, it'd be great if Ron would join us.
It'd be great if this echo would go away. It really messes with me. It's hard to talk.
I may have to go back and overlay the audio that I'm recording onto the video and repost it just so that it, because CJ said you're echoing as well, so that'll be terrific.
Ron has control, right? So if I go out and come back,
yeah, he does. But do you really want to give me singular focus on this show? I'm sure Ron doesn't.
Absolutely.
It's the Pete Show on Team Arrivals podcast. This is the moment you've been waiting for, Cardinals fans. You get to hear me rant and rave about the Cubs, and there's nobody to challenge me. Actually, there's nobody to challenge me right now. Elliot's going to agree.
Absolutely.
So, Elliot, Ron texted us this week, and he actually asked us, because I guess it came up at Ruffled Feathers, who's on your anti-Rushmore for the Cardinals? Who are the 4 Cardinals players that always drove you nuts?
Well, number one is Yachty.
I agree. He occupies the George Washington slot for me as well. Right up front, annoying the hell.
Yeah. And then the next 3 is kind of tough. I mean, Pujols, when he was a Cardinal, he'd probably be number 2.
Yeah.
And then
I agree with those first 2.
And then Jim Edmonds.
Yep.
He's my number 3.
Yep.
He's got to always argue about a call.
And he always seemed to make the play.
Yeah.
When you least needed him to make the play.
Yes.
Always there. But I think he's probably back in like the in the Teddy Roosevelt position for me. Like he's the one who's furthest back. He's not the one right out in front, least offensive. He earned that position by coming over to the Cubs. And
he was a bit enjoyable.
He was fun to watch. Number 4,
Scott Rowland.
Ooh, good one.
Why? Because he fucking killed us.
Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah. I tell you, if it's probably Scott Rowland for me because I actually saw him play, but if it wasn't Rowland, it would probably be Lou Brock for me just because had we not made that trade, I don't necessarily know that it would have changed the Cubs' fortunes in the ensuing 20 plus years since I started watching them. But I certainly wouldn't have to hear about it. There'd be another horrible trade that they would have made.
Yeah.
How you doing tonight, Ron? Are you echoing as well, or is it just?
I don't think I'm echoing. I just muted you, and so if I'm not echoing right now, that's why. But you guys can hear me just fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't hear an echo from me now, and now I do.
So
is he muted?
Yeah, it's just something to do with the board. It's not mixed minusing promise.
Mute him again
because I actually set it to do that. I'm sure that the audience is enjoying the
audio challenges.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever we're using here. Whatever you're using here is called Be Live, and it's terrible. And it was actually pretty seamless before, and we didn't seem to have many issues. And now, since they've changed it to what's supposed to be a more user-friendly interface, it's caused us problems on several shows, and it seems to be causing us problems tonight. Evidently, you can't use it and manage a show from your iPad because I was looking forward to not setting up shop tonight Instead, I've spent an equal amount of time just trying to figure out what the hell is happening with everything. It doesn't like iPad Pro microphones, evidently, but it's fine with iPhone microphones. It doesn't like my other. I sounded like somebody who was trying to disguise their voice because they had kidnapped somebody. That's the way my Yeti sounded a little while ago. And so this service is just terrible, and it's too bad that nobody out there is competing with them and setting something up, because I'd love to jump ship literally right now. Like right now.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is that you can't use YouTube Live through Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably just done one of our old Google Hangout things that just fine tonight. Anyway, it's going to be tough for anybody listening. Well, at least you and I are talking, Elliot.
Tell me something, guys, because I'm just trying to learn this and see if it changes everything. If I mute myself, does that affect anything?
Yeah, it's actually much better. No, it doesn't.
No. I still hear myself.
Yeah, Elliot, say something right now.
Test.
Yeah. See, I've got him muted.
Yeah, now I don't hear myself. Now I do.
Yeah. This is perfect.
Let me try one more thing.
Okay.
Does that fix anything?
I don't know.
Talk.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Holy cow, now I can actually wear both my headphones.
Yeah,
all right,
isn't that
welcome
great?
to the Team of Rivals podcast. Just ignore the previous 15 minutes. Ryan, you want to blank us all out and run the intro music?
Run the intro music. We got to start this right.
Go for it. Take us out. Start it over.
Start the whole thing over? Okay.
Yeah, just start it over. Don't get rid of the feed. Just start the whole thing over. Go.
Okay. I don't think I can do that because I don't hear music. We're not off to a very good start right now.
You can't play the music? Wait, I think I've got it somewhere.
I'm not hooked up to anything.
Hang on. I think I've got it somewhere. I don't know that it's the newest cut.
I can get it too.
I know you could. Everybody's gonna laugh at that. This is fascinating, folks. We know.
The audio version is going to be fantastic.
Well, it will be because I'm cutting the first 20 minutes out. Or Pete is anyway.
Damn right I am. Wow, I got some really old intros, but I don't think that I've got like the clean intro. Send it to me.
I've got it. Hold on. Menu. It's in the Dropbox, and I just.
Oh yeah, that's where I need to look. Of course, that's where I need to look.
So, Ron, how many episodes of Clone Wars do you need to watch to catch up?
Well, I just watched the last one, and I thought it was pretty good. But I'm missing like the 3 before that. Pete, it was like one. It's
so the whole Ahsoka story arc.
Yeah, I've missed the whole thing, but it's 129:20 dated, Pete, and it's version 2. I think it's version 2, or it's just the one that's not a V anything. Just 129:20.
So now that Ron's caught up, we can, or at least since he watched last week's, we can talk about it. Yeah, Liam turned to me, and you're right. He caught the red, and then he said, "Dad, they also used the Star Wars music. They didn't use the Clone Wars music." And I said, "You know what that is?" He said, "Because it's the same time as a movie." I said, "Exactly, buddy. From now on, we are in Revenge of the Sith." It's like, "Dad, that's really cool."
Yeah, let's get into that once we start.
Yeah.
We've already run out of content.
We have, but that's okay because okay.
You have the music yet?
I'm not seeing it in my Dropbox.
Christ. Hold on.
No. Everybody at home's having a great time here.
Because I've shared it with you before.
Yeah, I think I know where it is. Hey, CJ, thanks for the tip on Restream. We're going to check it out. Let's see. Here we go.
You got it?
You hear that?
Nope.
Let's try it again.
Put it in your thingy.
Oh, yeah.
You hear it? How come I don't hear it? Be Live's awesome. That's why.
Restream will stream to Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube Live all at the same time.
Yeah,
that's
true. That's true. What we have to have an answer to is how do you get all three of us on the same camera feed, on the same feed that goes into Twitch? Because if I'm all of us three are sitting at my table right here, that's easy to do. How do I get your camera into it? How do I get your camera into it? That's what nobody can answer on the internet for some goddamn reason. So CJ's right. You can do that. We all have to be in the same house.
Well, that's dumb.
Either on the same camera or through like one XSplit where all of our cameras are going in there, but they got to be all, it's like, no, that's the one thing the internet can't fucking answer is how do I get your camera, Elliot? You sitting in Chicago, Pete, you sitting in Elmhurst. How do we get all three cameras onto the same feed? Be Live is, unfortunately, that's why we're enslaved to this goddamn service is because this is the only one that does it. Google Hangouts did it, but they got rid of on air. And I'd love to go back just to YouTube right now because this is horse shit. They're getting like a 1-star review tonight. And they emailing me about it. And every time I log into Be Live, they want to talk to me.
Well, I think there's a way to connect Zoom into Restream. So you could take a Zoom party and you can stream that live through Restream.
Yeah. How do you get it on whatever, like a Facebook Live feed or something like that too, though? That's the thing. Like you really want to be on Periscope, YouTube Live, Facebook Live. You'd want to do all three simultaneously.
Yeah. All right. Let me test something real quick. Are you ready, gentlemen?
Yep.
You hearing that?
Yep.
All right. Ron, take us out.
Take us out or in?
Bring us in.
Take us out. Take out the video. I have the intro. Bring us back in. Go solo.
Okay. Will we hear you if I go solo,
though? I don't know.
So let's not worry about that.
Let's not worry about that. Ready? Here we go.
Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. So crazy, folks. So crazy. There's the drive. Way back. It might be. It could be. Yeah. Playing a high drive into left. Back towards the creek. He's at the track. He has it. World champion for 2011. A little bouncer slowly toward Bryant. He will glove it toward Rizzo. It's in time. And the Chicago Cubs win the World Series.
This is the Team of Rivals podcast. No insiders, no anonymous sources, just passionate analysis from the bleacher seats. Here are your hosts.
All right, after some bumps and bruises on the way tonight and some turbulence as we tried to use different devices, new equipment, and an internet service that claims that they've made everything easier has actually made life worse in every possible way. Yeah, that's a weak one. You got to have the loser game show sound. As we start the show tonight, for real this time, instead of just talking about audio issues and such, Elliot walks away from camera as usual as the show leads in, and there we go, and we've got that covered tonight. And Pete is having a sound effects orgy because he's got a new toy to play with, and so he's gotten carried away, and he's going to play these. This timing is wrong, but that's okay. We'll work through it. So this is one of those. I don't know how many people we have left viewing, to be honest with you, because the first 18 minutes you people saw was a complete shit show. You saw. This is not typically what happens before we get on, because before we get on,
yeah, it is.
Not really, because when I'm set up, and I've had that stuff for a couple of years now, and it's I still have issues with it from time to time, but we usually somehow camera about 5 minutes before showtime, except Elliot. Sorry, I didn't mean you, Elliot. You're there at least at 10:01, 10:02, and so we get in at that time. But this has been what I needed to be a relaxing night, where all I had to do was sit out on my porch, drink a few drinks, and literally just have an iPad set up. It didn't work out that way tonight. I'm at my kitchen table now because as soon as we started getting things working, what happened, fellas? Started raining here in Charlotte, and raining sideways, by the way. So the porch wasn't giving me any cover, wasn't giving me any protection. I'm now in my kitchen with a light ring so you could actually see me. I look like a vampire right now with bags under my eyes. I look like a somebody that was made a vampire too late in life, and you don't do that. You got to do it when you're young and you're vital, and I'm not either. Guys, love to ask you how you're doing tonight. We've already went through that, but how are you doing tonight? Take two.
Much better now. I gotta tell you,
Absolutely.
feeling good.
Pete, I have archaic. I'm talking through a webcam microphone because evidently no other microphone I own will not make me sound like a somebody who's just kidnapped somebody's relative, and I'm calling for ransom money because my old USB mic produces that kind of audio for me for some reason.
Who knows? Maybe it was all the problems on my end. That's what was causing you to sound like a kidnapper. It was good.
No. Yeah, I did a solo. I jumped on by myself last weekend. I don't know if you guys saw that. I jumped on, welcomed a couple people on. 2.5 minutes in, my voice changed. To go watch the video. It is not pretty, and it is like I expected Liam Neeson just to jump into the call saying, "I will find you and kill you." That's what should have happened. So I have jack and shit to talk about as far as baseball tonight. Sports is like, I probably don't realize how much I miss it. You guys probably think about this all the time too. There's so many other things that are more important right now to me that I miss being distracted, and I found myself finding other ways, new ways to be distracted. I'm a sports fan, but there is an off season for me as a sports fan, and it's not baseball season, right? That's my off season from sports because I'm a half-assed Blues fan. Of course, I was watching the playoffs all year last year, but I'll be honest with you, I watched it because they were in the playoffs. I didn't watch barely a regular season game whatsoever. I am a very bandwagon, fair weather hockey fan.
You were watching it for drunk Brett Hall.
How could you not? You didn't have to be a Blues fan or a hockey fan to watch it for drunk Brett Hall. But I used to be an avid hockey fan, and since I went to the military, they went on strike one year, and I've never fully come back, right? And so for me, in football, guys, we root for the Bears. That sucks. So in the winter, I find different ways to distract myself, and I've been doing the same thing at an odd time of the year. Thank God the weather's been better, but yeah, this has been different. But as far as baseball goes, guys, I'm like on a scale from 1 to 10, it's only bothering me at about a 3 right now. I don't know how you guys feel.
Well, obviously, we all miss sports because pretty much every single person who watches sports sat in front of their TV Sunday night to catch the first 2 episodes of The Last Dance. I mean,
which is fantastic, by the way. I watched those as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's that is the first time that my entire family has sat in the living room at the same time to watch the same thing.
Oh, you mean you're not your wife and your son, like watching Pixar Cars or something. You're talking about like your family, your other family, your secret family,
my parents, my brother,
yeah,
my wife and I. Yeah, we all sat because usually the brother's in one room watching something on his iPad. My dad's in the bedroom watching Westerns. My mom's in the front room watching some trash TV show, and the wife and I are usually watching something, but mostly being on our phones.
Yeah, right. Pete, what about you
though? I mean, yeah, I was there. I was watching Last Dance, but everything's kind of blending together. I mean, we've talked about this before, but today was a perfect example of it. Like, I am so zoomed out. This is no joke, my 6th video meeting of the day. And I'm tired of it. If I didn't have the boy coming and going every 3 days, I probably would have lost my mind. Like that is the thing that is breaking up the routine. Because how do you tell the difference anymore between weekdays and weekends? And
Yeah.
it just all blends together. And this week has been nice because you're right. There's been a sense of normalcy that's returned because sports at least has some immediacy. There are things that feel like they're really happening. The NFL draft is tonight, and it feels real. It feels like sports. Um, uh, the Last Dance feels real. It feels like something that we would normally be talking about. So this week's been very unusual, I think, compared to the previous four. It's not the same as us talking about like last week. We should have been recapping the first Cubs Cardinals series, but um, you know, this week has been a nice break from the routine.
Is somebody vacuuming?
Elliot?
No. I don't hear you. I've got no background noise.
I don't either. Pete, is it you again?
No, I've just muted myself.
Do you have a video up of vacuum cleaner reviews that's finding its way into the audio? Is it Ocean Waves?
I'm not seeing vacuum player reviews on here.
Okay, whatever. That's fine. It's kind of like a little bit of ocean noise in the background. It's actually kind of soothing. We'll let it go.
Good.
That's good. It's gone now.
I'd love to know what's causing it.
It's gone now.
Is it back now?
It's back now.
Yes.
It's the fan on my computer.
There you go.
And my microphone is so sensitive that it's picking up the fan on the computer. And I've got the gain all the way down.
Your gain is like you've got like steroid gain. You've got PED gain on your mic. You have for years. I don't know how that's possible.
Well, no, this is my brand new one. So
but that's what Pete had. I tried to use my old one tonight, and those are really good. It's probably the best USB mic you can get out there right now.
I need to get the cover for it so that it doesn't pick up things like your computer fan.
Vacuum cleaner sounds?
Yes.
Okay.
That are just minute decibels. Static.
Yeah, well, as long as it doesn't filter out beer cans being opened, I'm cool with
Absolutely
that.
not.
You need to start running.
I'll put it right up against it.
And Pete, you kind of
that the next time you need to open one, you give me a little high sign so that I can flag the tape here, and then I'll just turn it into a drop. So we will always have Elliot opening a can.
Even if you're going dry, we'll still have a can opening.
Sweet.
I mean,
it'll be Elliot's intro music.
I mean, we're not going to go back through 2 years of shows to capture some of your VIP moments or MVP moments.
I still think my best one is calling in wasted from the Brewers.
That was good. That was a good one. Kim says that she misses most of all, and I totally understand what she's talking about here. This is true. I don't. She misses watching her sons play, and I do as well. That's one thing that we don't. Honestly, it's not top of mind because like priorities have shifted for most of us on a billion different things, and the fact that kids are stuck inside, they can't socialize with their friends, they can't play sports, they can't little league. My son Sam, who he broke his hand last year, missed most of the whole spring season. He wanted to play soccer in the fall, and that was fine. They're not going to play this year. He's going to be like 2 years out of little league, and maybe that's not a big deal, but my only worry is he loses or just doesn't want to go back to it, and and that's that. Will, in an unrelated story, my favorite baseball player was Will Clark. Wife doesn't know that, but Will is I don't know. These kids are too young. You can't tell how they're going to develop or what they're going to grow interested in or whatever. But Will is just not as interested, let's just put it that way, in following rules or any type of structure when it comes to sports. I don't know anything yet. He completely change in a year or two. I just don't see him following along or being interested enough to play sports ball. I think he's going to be a little bit like my brother, which is scary as hell. I understand, Kim. That's one thing I'm not looking. I do miss coaching the little league. I was going to stay on. I was actually going to coach Will this year. That would have been kind of cool. Sam would have had a different coach, so he didn't have to listen to me for the 4th year in a row, which probably would have been good for him. And so, yeah, I get it. The Last Dance was a good documentary. And I didn't know anything about this until they started making hype about it, because I think did they bring it out a little bit earlier than they were going to? Is that the case?
I think it was June, wasn't it? I think it was originally scheduled to air on the off days of the NBA Finals.
Okay. Yeah, and on a couple occasions, right? They did it here. They did it when they released a few things early. Good on them. But I was never a huge basketball fan, but when you were from Illinois, during that time, I mean, Michael Jordan was the face of basketball. I don't care what anybody says, except people that might be from Cleveland. Being that LeBron is from Cleveland, I realize that's a pretty damn big deal. I'm sorry, guys, but there was really 1 or 2 questions that were going to come out of this. You're either going to love Michael Jordan even more, or you're going to hate him more after this documentary is over. Right? It's one or the other. You're going to appreciate and love it, or you're going to be like, that guy is. I would hate to play against somebody like that. It'll be interesting.
Well, I think he even said that after he watched all of the episodes that they had put together, that he is afraid that fans are going to, in his words verbatim, they're going to think I'm an asshole. Well, it's like, you were one of the most competitive basketball players to ever play, and you only wanted the best out of the people that you played with. You wanted them to practice at your level. You wanted them to play at your level. Of course, you're going to come off like an asshole.
Well, and also the world has changed in 20 years,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you look at it. If you watch any kind of documentary where people are being honest about it, Larry Bird's a total dick.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to people who played against him. He's one of the biggest trash talkers who's ever played the game, and he is a complete prick. You never got that sense in the 80s. There was never that perception of him, but it leaked out. I mean, if you were from the Chicago area, you knew that Michael Jordan was not a choir boy, not just because of his gambling and the cigars and everything. Word got out about all the ways that Michael Jordan, behaved like an entitled ass, and also wasn't the best teammate. People heard about him punching Will Perdue and Bill Cartwright on multiple occasions. We heard about him punching Steve Kerr. But it was a different world then. You kind of understood it if people held other people to extremely high expectations and maybe crossed the lines at times because they were trying to achieve something. It's behavior that would not be acceptable now at all. And I honestly think that that's part of the reason why LeBron James will never be at Michael Jordan's level, is because he was raised in a different environment where that kind of behavior is no longer condoned. So LeBron James as an individual may be, I don't think so, but people could probably argue that as an individual, he may be a better basketball player than Michael Jordan. He'll never be a better teammate and a better winner than Michael Jordan because he can't raise his teammates' game the way that Michael Jordan did. Because he can't, there's no way for him to communicate those expectations on his teammates the way that Michael did, and to impress upon them just how important it was for them to practice just as hard as he did.
Yeah, he was at least through the first 2 episodes, and we always heard that, right? Like, you never really knew how good the guy was until you saw him at practice. Not, you saw what you saw in the games, but it was always like you never knew how good he was until you saw him just practicing the craft without being on the game court. And so definitely see how he's in the face of just about any and everybody who was at at least the few clips we got to see while he was at practice. So,
and they addressed it right off the bat when they talked about them going to Paris, and this was a story that you'd heard multiple times about Michael Jordan. So it wasn't a surprise when you heard about Paris too, but the way that he played in that exhibition, right? And they won the championship and everything. And he didn't count that championship as meaning anything but he took every game seriously. And it was something that you heard multiple times about Jordan. He played every game with every ounce of energy that he had, because his thinking was, there's somebody out there in the stadium. They've scrimped and they've saved their money. This is the only time they're ever going to get to see me play live. And I don't want them to go and say, I saw Jordan dogging it. I want them to go home and know that they saw my best.
And I'm sure that there are plenty of athletes that feel the same way. They just maybe didn't have near the skill or talent level.
But how many athletes do you think there are that play an exhibition game all out, 100%?
I think there are you probably count them on one hand throughout the history of guys who didn't matter if they were playing a pickup game, that they're just competitive no matter what. And there's people that are non-professional athletes that I've known throughout my life that are just competitive to the bone, like no matter what the hell you're doing. It could be a game of cards. My wife might fall into this category. If you're playing anything board game wise here at the kitchen table, she is ultra competitive and fierce, and she is the biggest shit talker of anybody I know when it comes to like a game like euchre. It is mythical, the levels that some people I've worked with go, whether it's I'm going to present way better than you just did, or I'm going to look at my PowerPoint slides. They are way more polished than yours, and this is a meaningless presentation. And so, yeah, you've seen people like that just in everyday life too, where you just don't know where that fire comes from. All of us have that thing where like I've done this 300 times. All I have to do is maybe update a few things on here, but I'm going to recycle most of the material and just do it all over again. There are some people that just won't do it that way. That it's ultra important, and I think that as an athlete, he obviously fell into the same category where it didn't matter. Everything was a challenge to him, and he was willing to take everything on.
Yep.
I sent the link out to my son. He asked how much of the show's left. Not enough for him, but he might join us. I don't know, but we'll see. Yeah. So anyway, it was the first two episodes of that were pretty entertaining. I didn't know, or I just flat out forgot what kind of a situation Scottie Pippen was in going into his final year.
I did too. I totally forgot about that he was out almost the entire year.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that too. I mean, when they win a championship, you forget and you think, well, he must have been there the entire time. I think it was more so what I was referring to wasn't the time he missed that year or why he missed it. It was that he was so, I just forgot how grossly underpaid he was for how talented he was, and what he gave up for the Bulls is just incredible.
Well, they gave you the villain of this 10-part story right away. So,
although I have to tell you, no surprise about Jerry Krause being cast in a bad light, because he was we knew this for years and years. He was so petty. You know, he wanted credit for this thing. And he was never going to get credit because Jordan was on the team and he didn't draft him. But I think the surprise villain in this is going to come out is Jerry Reinsdorf.
Absolutely.
Because Jerry Reinsdorf could have said, like he said, I told Scottie you shouldn't sign this contract. You're the owner.
Yeah.
Rip up the contract and say, Scottie, we're going to do right by you. He could have stepped in at any time and said, Scottie, let's renegotiate this thing.
It's the Jerrys. The Jerrys.
Yeah. And you've seen it with how bad the Bulls have been for the last, decade plus. Jerry Reinsdorf at any time could have intervened and said, I don't like where this is going, but he allowed it to just get worse and worse and worse. And it reminds me a lot of Bill Wirtz. It took Michael Reinsdorf taking over the Bulls and finally recognizing that there was a problem for there to be a change made, because I think if Jerry was still in day-to-day control of that team, Gar Pax would still be running the show, which is unfortunate. I'm really glad to see what's happening right now, because it at least gives me some hope that the Bulls are going to return to prominence.
Well, you know what I just don't understand is, and you're absolutely right, Pete, that's going to end up, it looks like he was participating in these interviews, and I mean, these aren't old clips they've got of Jerry Reinsdorf, right? I mean, these look like they were interviewing him specifically for this documentary.
Yeah, everybody was.
But the thing is, it's like, except Michael Jordan's dad, rest in peace, sir.
Right.
But Jerry Reinsdorf, like I just don't understand. Like Jerry Krause is his employee. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're right. He's the one who picked him out.
No, and I understand, and he did a pretty damn good job assembling that team.
Mm-hmm.
You got to give him a lot of credit for that. And so I think that I don't know what Jerry Reinsdorf ran into is that. I mean, what did Krause have on him? Did he have dirt, naked pictures, or I mean, why couldn't he step in and?
You've seen it again and again with Jerry Reinsdorf. He is extraordinarily loyal. If somebody performs well initially in Jerry's eyes, and if they toe the company line, Jerry will keep them around. Look at Kenny Williams. Look at John Paxson. Look at Gar Forman. You forget Gar Forman has been with this organization for 2 decades, just under 2 decades. I mean, he's been there a long time. John Paxson, I don't think he's ever left the Bulls organization. If I remember correctly, he retired and he immediately became one of the team ambassadors. But Scottie Pippen's been essentially fired by the Bulls, twice?
Yeah.
Right? He was allowed to walk in a sign and trade, and then he just recently got fired as an ambassador. And he brought way more to that team than John Paxson did. But Jerry Reinsdorf, man, if you are loyal to him, he's going to keep you around. Yeah,
it's still to me, it's like if you couldn't look up and see that they still had now I understand that some of the guys were what you would consider today on the wrong side of 30. But they had that duo of Pippen and Jordan had produced 6 championships for you. And look at Elliott. Let's contrast that with the Phillies, who held on to those players for 3 or 4 years too long, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there was ever a situation where you needed to dismantle, seeing that these guys were on the downside of whatever it was, right after 2011, they held on to that team, that core, way too long.
Chase Utley, Ryan Howard.
Right.
Yeah,
you just keep going on and on. They probably waited a year too long to trade Cole Hamels. We saw what they suffered for years. It's amazing that, look, I understand what a GM is looking at, where we've won 6 of these out of, what was it, guys, 8-9 years? Like the Bulls were on top, except the couple that Jordan retired early, and he tried to come back and they didn't quite get there. But I understand looking at it and going, this can't last forever. We have to start, churn has to start happening at some point in time. But you think after a franchise produces 6 championships that you would hold on to that just a bit longer. And it might have a little bit to do with nostalgia, but I don't know. I'm interested to see the rest of this, because there's more. And I don't know why my son's FaceTiming. I sent him a damn link to this. And so I'm going to have to, you guys continue. I'm going to put myself on mute and see what this story produces.
I tell you, I wonder if we would ever see that again. Now, granted, it was an unusual team, right? Jordan, Pippen, Rodman were all on the wrong side of 30. In fact, most of that team was on the wrong side of 30, but they were all still among the best players in the league. And I guess you could say Jerry Krause was kind of forewarning what would eventually be to come in sports, because he wanted to break up the team while they were still winning championships.
The 2 years before, when the first year that Jordan came back, he wanted to break them up after that. Yep.
And you look at it now, he would be encouraged to go through with that, even though the team had just won its 4th championship in 6 years. He would be looking to shop Scottie Pippen to try and keep the run going, instead of going with what it's interesting. Had the Cubs come through with what we expected after 2016, we would be in that exact situation right now. The question would be, do we continue riding these guys out for as long as we can, or do we instead try to flip them and extend the competitive window and be willing to take a step back for a year?
Yeah. Hey guys, can we switch gear? We can come back to the Bulls thing if you want to, but Braden, could you please turn the volume down on your TV? The Browns' 2nd round 21st pick is not really a big deal. And
kidding, Greg's all up in a bundle that The Packers drafted a quarterback. He thinks Aaron Rodgers is on his way out.
Yeah, shit. Maybe
He's not on his way out.
He's not on his way out. I was saying
Yeah.
Braden. Hey, will you do me a favor,
If you look at
Braden?
2005, they drafted Rodgers,
Hey,
and when
little
Favre was
Greg
35, Rodgers
Cody.
is 36. I think they're going with the Rodgers approach and trying to groom him.
Hey, Stugatz.
I think it's a good move. I like it.
Stugatz, will you turn your camera sideways so I don't have to see the part of the Cubs logo behind you?
I think we can get another wide receiver in the second round. I think why not take the risk?
Are you listening to me at all?
How does he manage to mute you?
I don't know. I think it's just a kid filter.
It's called selective listening.
Hey, Braden, turn your phone sideways. Braden, orient your phone differently.
Braden, can you hear your dad?
I can only hear Pete. Why is that?
Wait,
I don't know. You guys
Braden can hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Braden, turn your phone sideways.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. That's.
I don't want to see the Cubs logo behind you.
I can
Your
only
dad
hear
doesn't
Pete.
want to see. Your dad doesn't want to see the Cubs logo behind you.
This is okay. So you're gonna have to tell
Cubs,
my son everything I'm telling him.
This is great.
Is this?
I love that he can only hear me.
That's funny.
Yeah, I don't know how that's possible. You guys can hear me though, right?
I only see Pete.
Yeah.
I only see Pete too.
How do you see me?
I only see you, and that's it. I don't see.
Must be a
anybody
geographical
else.
thing.
Did he click
On
the Be Live link, or
I
is
only
this?
see you.
Yeah, is he on BeLive or is this a FaceTime?
I don't know.
No, I'm on Be Live. I'm not on FaceTime.
Wow.
I don't know what's going on. This service is terrible. We talked about it before we started the real show. Folks, you're in the coming weeks. We may make the executive decision here, Pete and I, that you're going to have to go over to YouTube Live on Thursdays at 10 because I've about had it with this shit. This is terrible. He still doesn't know. And I thought it was natural that he just wasn't listening to me. He was just doing whatever he wanted to do. All right.
Well, he could listen or read what you're saying if he has a thing up of Facebook, because he could read the closed captioning of you cussing at him.
He's just talking about what he wants to be. He doesn't care.
Of course, that's because he can only hear me.
I'm going to take him out.
Yeah, he can only hear Pete.
I'm taking him out right now. He can come back in if he wants to.
Braden.
Bye.
Wow.
Oh, that was fun.
Too fun.
I really thought, like, this is typical him. I'm talking, he's not listening at all. He's just doing whatever the hell he feels like doing, and
that's absolutely what I thought was happening.
Me too.
All right, I told him he can come back in if he wants to, but I kind of don't want him to at this point.
Well, why? He's only going to be able to hear me anyway, apparently.
Yeah, but the problem is, Elliot and I are struggling to make a point. He's just going to start babbling in the background.
So I'll just have to signal you to mute him.
And he'll be the new vacuum sound in the background. Instead of the vacuum or echo, it'll just be, Braden, do you see us now?
There we go. I can see everybody.
Oh, yay.
Pete was just full screen on my phone.
He was just full screen. Okay, he can. He said he could hear us.
Greg, I saw your comment. I am a Packers fan. I got the Packers shirt on right now. I got Packer socks on, Packer pants, all decked out for the draft. I like the pick. I like the approach. But everyone laughed at.
The thing is, guys, he's not even looking at us. He just set the phone down, and he's a furnace blaster right now. And Braden, we're going to give you 60 seconds. You get out everything on the draft because it's football, and I don't care.
All right, so here we go. 2005, everyone was like, "Oh, why are the Packers picking Aaron Rodgers? They need people to help them win now." And people are saying this now about picking Jordan Love. Well, Rodgers is 36, Favre is 35. I think Love learning under Rodgers. I mean, take the risk. I feel like he could very well be good. And Rodgers is a great mentor. I feel like he could groom a good quarterback. And there's a lot
By
of wide
what? Telling him to
receivers
grow a mustache?
that we that we could get in the second round. I think there's still people left in the second round. It's a very heavy wide receiver draft, so I think it's a good risk. They did it with Rodgers, and I could see it working out here too. 40 seconds, 20 seconds left. Look at me. Look at me. Undefeated, never lost.
I tell you what, I did read something earlier today that backs up Braden's point. With Brett Favre on the roster, the Packers drafted 10 quarterbacks. And even after Aaron Rodgers was drafted, they have drafted 1, 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks now, adding in Jordan Love. Meanwhile, the Bears from 1992 to 2019, they've drafted 10 quarterbacks total.
And
none of them have played out.
Right. None of them have played out. I mean, what is the, and you can't just point at one, there's only one common denominator. Am I correct? That there have been several GMs throughout that span, right? There have been several decision makers at the higher mid to mid level. What's been the common denominator in all of the years? The Bears cannot draft quarterbacks. What's the common denominator here, guys?
But is it that they can't draft them or they can't develop them?
My question is, what's the only common thing that has been there in that organization since Jim McMahon?
Sure.
What is it? Ownership group, right?
Yeah.
What the fuck, guys? It doesn't take, like the company I work for starting getting real bad at a few things. And then they recognized it and started correcting that and then getting really good at those things. So what the fuck is that McCaskey family not understand about that position, the most important one on your team? I don't care what your argument is. That is the most important position of any team. Why the fuck can't they get that right one time? How long ago was 1985 or 86 or 80, whatever it was? It's been a really long time ago, hasn't it?
25 years, yes, sir.
Don't you think most CEOs or whatever would have been fired multiple times over and over again in that time span if you could not develop a position that is the most important? Hell, you could argue in sports. All of sports.
What you're advocating for is a return of Papa Bear, but he's not coming through that door.
He's not, but I think it might be time to sell.
Yeah, but Georgia's not going anywhere, or Virginia's not going anywhere.
As far as the Bears, it's bad when they drafted Mitch Trubisky. They had a Deshaun Watson who won a national championship. Everybody knew Deshaun Watson was special, great quarterback. I'll let it slide that they didn't draft Mahomes because I didn't think Mahomes was going to be what he is today. But as far as Deshaun Watson, everyone knows this kid's name. And it's bad when you have to look up the quarterback that the Bears drafted and just to see who he is. Because a quarterback out of North Carolina that played, 15 games goes number 2 when not many people knew this guy's name. And people say, oh, he's high on draft boards. For what? Mitch Trubisky, bust. Terrible.
High on draft boards for
horrible.
The second round, not the first round.
No,
So
Trubisky was highly rated. Look,
I was celebrating as a Packer fan because I was like, great. Great choice. But what kind of draft pick is that when you have a national champion on the board? That's
Tim Tebow was a national champion. It doesn't mean shit.
Right.
Still way better than
that's very true. And you could point to a lot of quarterbacks that have won a national championship. And I forgot the lefty from USC who sucked. Vince
Leinart.
Matt Leinart.
Leinart. Vince Young sucked. There've been a
Mr. Butt Fumble.
I'll tell you guys, here's the problem that I had with the Mitch Trubisky pick. It wasn't the pick in and of itself. It was
The trading up.
In the moment, right. It was what they gave up to move up one slot. In retrospect now, as you learn more about it, the real flaw in it was that Ryan Pace had an idea in his mind, and the only thing that he was looking to do was he was looking to confirm the decision that he had already made. He didn't even have dinner with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was not in his consideration. It was either Mahomes or Trubisky, and everything that I've read, it really came down to, we're going with Trubisky, prove me wrong. And there was nothing that anybody else in the room, including his head coach at the time, there was nothing anybody else in the room could do to get him off that position. And so he ended up making a horrible trade.
Yeah.
Trading away a significant part of that year's draft and the next year's second round pick to move up one slot. Huge overpay, and it has crippled the organization ever since.
Well, and when Ryan Pace said, prove me wrong, Mitch Trubisky said, hold my beer.
Hold my beer. Yeah.
And I'll prove you wrong. So Braden, thank you for giving us your take on what the Packers have done on this draft.
But hold on, let me say one more thing.
Oh, sure.
Right? So the Bears taking Mr. Trubisky in that draft, that's like the Bengals, instead of taking Joe Burrow, taking like Jalen Hurts with the first pick. I mean,
no, it's not.
It makes zero sense. Why would they take Mr. Trubisky?
No, it's not like taking Jalen Hurts. At the time, Mitch Trubisky, Patrick Mahomes, and Deshaun Watson were all rated fairly equally. The problem is that Pace ignored the downsides of the Trubisky pick. What it would have been a much more apt comparison would have been taking a flyer on Justin Herbert instead of Joe Burrow, or Tua Tagovailoa, right? Saying, yes, we know that he was hurt, but we believe in what he's got. I think that's a far more apt comparison on that end. It's not taking Jalen Hurts. That's.
I could see Jalen Hurts having a better career than Mr. Trubisky.
Oh, absolutely. I hope that he falls to the Bears in the second round. I don't know that he will, but I agree with you.
I mean, I don't know. Like, if you compare you compare Jalen Hurts and Mr. Trubisky, I feel like they're similar in different ways. But I feel like Jalen Hurts could absolutely beat out Trubisky if he even got drafted to the Bears. Even maybe not this year, but next year if Foles doesn't pan out and Jalen Hurts has a good preseason, I could see him giving Trubisky a run for his money.
Wait, you stopped?
What?
We gave you the show. What are you doing? Figured you just run with it, man.
Yeah, well, I gave my take, and if anyone cares, the Tennessee Titans are on the clock.
All right, let's get you off the draft for a minute. What are your thoughts on the Clone Wars?
The last episode I thought was great. I thought it was very enjoyable. I don't even know if the old man sitting there has even seen it.
He did.
Did he?
Yeah, the most recent one, he saw it.
All right, so we finally stopped talking about the NFL just for a few minutes because, right, we've shifted topics, right?
Yeah, we all walked away from our microphones, and that actually got Braden to stop talking. It's amazing. I came back and it was quiet.
Yeah, he's you give him mic time, and if he had a mute button on us, guys, it would be a complete disaster. He is right now, when he was talking and we couldn't get a word in, he was as happy as a tornado in a trailer park.
But that was the unusual thing. When he didn't have an audience, he stopped.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. I was the first one to come back to my microphone, and he was just looking at his phone like, what's going on?
I said what I said.
Nobody's listening to me.
Done. Nobody's listening, so I'm just done.
Okay, so we shifted topics a bit. So you folks that only will sit here and listen to us talk about sports, we'll definitely get back to it, I think. But one of the things I think you guys place where you guys were going was, did I hear something about Clone Wars?
You did.
Okay, so guys, I have a gap that I have to make up with the latest season, and that is all of the episodes. I think 3 or 4 episodes before last Friday, which was the first part of the Siege of Mandalore. So if that's where you guys started, please pick it back up, and I will contribute as much as possible. But I have been, I haven't been good with keeping up.
I don't know that you really missed much with the Ahsoka arc. It just, I understand it was necessary just to put her in context.
Yeah.
Of where she was after she left the temple.
But is it like one of those things, like if you missed it, you're still going to be okay, but it might back. It's like probably like reading the novelization of a movie. Like you get a little bit more detail, but it doesn't really. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it explains what it did. Is it explained how she knew about Boba Fett being on Mandalore? That's the one thing. That's the one detail that whole arc provided. Other than that, it was actually pretty superfluous. And here's an interesting thing also that I found out. That arc was chronologically happens before the first arc. It happens before the Bad Batch.
I like how Greg Yaki threw a Star Wars reference into Braden.
Right?
I trust you were supposed to defeat the Sith, not join them, and that was about your Packers thing. So you've disappointed one of our loyalists here, Braden. I'm not sure what happened there.
All I gotta say is trust in Jordan Love. Just trust Rodgers to build him.
Okay, I'm sure Rodgers' first interest is to groom and train.
And I'm sure that a bunch of Bears fans are right with you on wanting to trust in Jordan Love.
Hey man, everyone thought the Rodgers pick was iffy, and you know what? I think it could work out. You know, it's risky, but
Hey, wait a second, Braden. You just pulled a Ron Nuttall. You took us off topic. We were talking about Star Wars. You brought us back to
going back to it.
So I'm going to bring it. I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to bring us back. Here we go. Let's see if we can do that. Here we go.
Oh no.
We getting that?
No.
Oh, damn it.
Pete, do you understand my early pain like 2.5 years ago when I bought all this nice fancy crap and I couldn't get it to work? You feel my pain now, don't you?
I do. I was all set. It was going to be great. It was going to be a nice touch. We were all going to be happy. We were going to be one loving family. Mommy and Daddy were going to stop fighting.
Let's go back to this episode because this was Pete. I think you were making some very, I think, riveting statements before we hit the record button tonight about.
Which time? Hit the record button. Which time?
Yeah, exactly.
Before the real record button, before the one that's actually going to show up on audio. I think that the fact that we're kind of into, by the time we got partway through this episode, we're actually into Revenge of the Sith time frame.
Right.
I actually think that's really cool. And I always wanted to see the Clone Wars reach that point where whatever, it was the second where Anakin and Obi-Wan had to go rescue the Chancellor. I always thought that's where it would go. It seems like we're going to go a little bit beyond that, which I think is going to be great. And I didn't think we got it there.
We got it right at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah.
You know, it was right there. I really enjoyed it. We got that exact moment when the decision had to be made. Are you going to Mandalore or are you going to save the Chancellor?
Yeah.
And I made this point on our Twitter feed, and I guess it has been made to a certain extent, but I think it really came through loud and clear this week. It's now clearer than ever. The Clone Wars is about Ahsoka. This is about her journey. This, when we first started this thing, it felt like, we're learning the growth of Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship, and we're seeing what all the Jedi did during the Clone Wars. The 7 years of this series are about Ahsoka.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. But I think there's another character there that's a close second, and it's not Anakin, it's not Obi-Wan, it's not anybody else. It's Rex.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think that one question I always had was Rex, one of the 501st, marching up with Anakin at the temple. And we know now it was absolutely not. Now we learned a little bit about that from an Ahsoka novelization. It was just titled Ahsoka. But so we kind of learned that, you know, he wasn't really there, but like you kind of in the Star Wars universe, like sometimes novels, feature films, animation, anything that's like visual will trump anything that's written. We all know that. And I think at this point, it gives a really nice explanation that Rex and Anakin parted ways for a good reason. Parted ways because of this thing, and Anakin went to Coruscant. Ahsoka and Rex were together and went on another mission to Mandalore. Really kind of gets a nice degree of separation there, where you know that Rex didn't have to make that choice. He didn't have to have that trigger set off and make that decision. Now I think we'll get, I can't wait for these last episodes, because I think we're really going to get a nice piece of, you know, information that I think we're all pining for. Is like, how did some of those clones that showed up back up in Rebels avoid Order 66? And I think we're going to get our answer. It's going to be great. It's going to be a nice tie from the Clone Wars to Rebels and beyond. I want to talk about a rumor a little bit later. I want to keep going with this rumor about Rex somehow hanging around, potentially showing his face in The Mandalorian. I think that's an interesting thing too.
Ooh.
Well, it would make sense.
That'd be
because
great.
He's in Return of the Jedi.
Right.
It's been retconned that he's the bearded,
bearded
commando,
the white bearded guy on the
Yep.
side of the bunker, right? Yeah.
Yep, that's been retconned. I agree with you, Ron. One of the things that I am absolutely looking forward to in this Siege of Mandalore is the moment when Order 66 comes out, because it's close.
Yeah.
We know that it's coming.
I think it's
And
going to
can't
overlap.
wait- Yeah, and I can't wait to see what happens when it comes through. What is going to happen with Rex? Because we know from Rebels that he cuts the chip out of his head, but it hasn't happened yet.
And the thing I heard on Rebel Force Radio, which I don't know if I'm seeing this wrong, or the guys got it wrong, or missed it, that Rex really didn't know what happened to Anakin, right? And didn't Ahsoka just tell him when they met again in Rebels? But if you guys recall, Ahsoka didn't understand or didn't really know it was Anakin until later in season 2,
Right.
Rebels, after her and Rex had already met.
Right.
Met back up.
Was it
So-
when they met in the temple?
I think in the temple. Well, if you remember, there was that siege of Lothal was.
That's right.
I think the first episode that kicked off season 2, and she got a feeling or a vision that I think she kind of thought it was Anakin,
I don't
but
think
she
that
didn't know.
Knew it until they faced off in that temple. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're exactly
Well,
right.
because his helmet broke and she could see his eyes.
Yes. Because if they were apart, like Ahsoka and Rex were on Mandalore when this happened, fighting this battle against Darth Maul and whatever else, and Anakin was on Coruscant and all that's happened, I think that, to the best of their knowledge at that point, both of them, was the Jedi were purged. Anakin must have been a casualty of this because he's gone, and Ahsoka, of course, didn't realize that fully, or didn't get full confirmation until they faced off in Malachor at the end of season 2 for Star Wars Rebels. So this guy, I mean, look, you're doing a live podcast like that. Sometimes like you pause, but I was listening to it at the time. I'm like, you guys, no. Rex didn't know. I don't think he knew anything about Anakin.
No, I don't think he did either. And there was a moment in that arc that you missed that, Ron, you can go back and see it. I can't remember if it was in the first or the second episode of the arc. But when Anakin and the sisters were leaving Coruscant, and they were flying in a military lane, and Ahsoka's freaking out. She's like, you can't fly here. We're in a civilian ship. You need to get out of this lane. And the command ship that is controlling military traffic in that lane is trying to contact them. And Anakin is on that ship. And he senses that Ahsoka is on the ship that they're trying to contact. And Yularen is about to have them waylaid, and Anakin says, no, let him go. It's very reminiscent of that moment.
Yeah.
In that moment in Yeah,
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, very, very reminiscent. So yeah, they still have a connection, and he can still sense her, even though obviously it's been months or possibly years since they've been together. So yeah, they still have a very deep connection. They're not a dyad. Because
A dyad.
Dave Filoni decided not to pull that out of his ass from nowhere.
One thing I think people didn't think about is when Order 66 was executed, Rex had that chip, but Ahsoka's not a Jedi, so Rex might not even have tried to execute her if they were with each other at this moment that Order 66 was executed, because Ahsoka's not a Jedi.
Yeah. I think that's a valid point you're making, Braden. I think that's a real possibility, and that could potentially be a way it plays out to where he doesn't act on it because of that, and then they get him fixed afterwards. Right. But it's fun speculation. And this is, again, guys, I'll go back to, it's going to sound crazy. You guys might feel the same way. I'm more excited to see how this wraps up than I really was to see The Rise of Skywalker. That's like, who would have thought an animated show? When we first saw that Clone Wars movie that came out in theaters in 2008, like, who in the hell would have thought?
Do you think it has anything to do with the fact that we know that Dave Filoni is the one running this? And
it is, but here's what I think, and it comes back to, we've talked about this offline, we've talked about it during the show. It's the fact that there has been one person who has been shepherding this story the whole time. There have been multiple people who have been writing episodes and writing arcs, but throughout, Dave Filoni, and in consultation with George Lucas, has been shepherding this story along. And the sequel trilogy did not have that.
No, it didn't.
Right.
And I tell you that, like, if you were to showcase certain Star Wars characters in any environment, setting, or whatever, whether it be a convention, Pete, that you've been to, none of us have, you're going to get really loud cheers for an Ahsoka Tano appearance at any convention. And imagine the way, whether it's a trailer, whether it's this or that, you're going to get like standing applause. You're going to get screams.
Yeah.
If they announce a Finn series, how many people do you think are going to rise up at a Star Wars convention or a Poe Dameron animated story that are going to like rise up and just cheer and be like, Jesus Christ, we can't wait for this. We're going to pack the house.
I'm waiting for that Lore Santeca spinoff so I can finally understand who the fuck he was.
Well, you know what? That's a good actor, and I would have liked to have seen more than like 30 seconds of him on film.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny. Everybody was talking in the in the wake of the Rise of Skywalker about what a masterful job JJ did in tying up all the loose ends. No, he didn't. There's one, and he really didn't explain Snoke. He just explained away Snoke. And here we go. I'm going to throw the unpopular opinion out there. When was the last time that J.J. Abrams came up with a good original story idea?
You'd have to say Law, the only one.
Okay.
Right?
That was how long ago? 15 years?
Shit, I don't know. I never watched it. I never watched a single episode of it.
Neither did I. From what I understand, it went downhill after what, season 2?
I'd say 4.
Okay.
But
seriously, I mean, look at all the stories that he's come up with that are not original. They're not his stories, right? Super 8, that's a Spielberg film. That's a remake. Star Trek, those are reboots, remakes. Star Wars, he's telling somebody else's story.
Well,
I'm starting to think that J.J. Abrams is actually not that good a film.
Well, Pete, I could probably find a ways to agree and disagree with you on all fronts there. All I will say is that I gave him a lot of credit for the Star Trek reboot. Now, I only did it for this reason. Star Trek was a thing that had a certain cast of characters, right? And you could never really replace those guys. You could never replace Nimoy. You could never replace Shatner. Like, that's kind of the essence of Star Trek, right? And I'm not a Trekkie, and I never have been. But I enjoyed the first new Star Trek movie that he did, because I think for a second I realized that, or at least I'm speculating that he understood you can't. Like, people have tried to reboot Star Wars in many, or sorry, Star Trek in many ways. They tried The Next Generation. They've tried Deep Space Nine. All these other things that they've tried to do.
Whoa.
What?
Stay away. Stay away from The Next Generation. Picard.
Hit the pause button. Hit the pause button.
The man.
Hit the pause button on your thing. I'm going to get to Picard in a second. But, like,
I'm with you, Elliot.
The original Star Trek is like, people have never been able to replace those characters, and he realized how
Original
much they
Star
love them.
Trek was shit. Have you
Fine.
ever watched those shows?
I've never watched the TV shows, but I've watched the original movies. There was a certain.
Hang on. They started getting good with Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan. Hey,
Star Trek: The Motion Pictures is
It was pretty bad.
almost impossible to watch. You got to be drunk.
No, it's dog shit. I agree. It's dog shit. But some of those.
There's what, a 10-minute sequence of them flying around the Enterprise at the beginning.
All right.
And it's slow, and the music is slow. The only way you're staying awake is if Braden earmuffs, if you've been doing lines before you hit play on the movie.
I'm not going to disagree with anything you just said. The motion picture is terrible. But I think there's a certain charm and a knowledge of the original Star Trek crew, that knowing that people tried to replicate it many times over, and it just never stuck. And I think that the reboot thing, I actually enjoyed the first Star Trek movie that he did. The other two I don't like as much, but the first one I really liked, because it had a familiarity to it. You saw a younger version of the characters you saw when they first met. I know it was an alternate universe, great, but I enjoyed that one. I think I gave him credit for that because he realized that if we're going to get interest back into this franchise, I think that the original cast, original essence of the characters got to be there in some way, shape, or form in order for people to get interest in this again. So I think that the reboot, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the reboot more than I did any of the other movies. Wrath of Khan was good, but I enjoyed the reboot. But Pete, my thing with, you've heard me say this about The Force Awakens, and I'll say it about The Rise of Skywalker, and the more distance I get from it, the more times I've seen it, I like it less and less every time I see it. But my whole thing with The Force Awakens is it a reboot of A New Hope? How can you say it's not? How can you say that Starkiller Base was a great idea? It was a shit idea. Stealing babies to raise a First Order Stormtrooper Corps is a stupid idea. They should have been clones.
Yeah.
That's the only explanation why you could raise such a massive army to take over the galaxy in such a short span of time. You don't steal trillions of babies. Stupid, dumb. Who the fuck ever came up with that idea? I don't know, but it's awful. I've always had my issue. The First Order is lame, weak. I don't care how cool their ships and technology looked. It never worked. Piss poor explanation for how it all came about. I think it was lazy ass storytelling.
So there should have been more to the Knights of Ren, because that was the big thing.
Another one, yeah.
That was the big thing when Luke was telling Rey what happened, that he left with, he torched the temple, and he left with, all of these Jedi that I was training. They didn't look like freaking Jedi when he was fighting them in the last movie. So those guys were training as Jedi.
I think there's a comic book element you're missing. Like, very few of them, none of them came from the Jedi Temple, right? There was an order established of the Wrens before. They had force sensitivity. They had certain things, whatever, but
they didn't seem to be using any force sensitivity.
No, they looked batshit scared. Lightsaber, and they didn't know what to do, and their ass kicked. And it's very incoherent. Pete, you're right. You've already said it. It's the sequel trilogy is a complete. It's a mess. It's disjointed. JJ started off, and as much as I had fun watching it the first time through, the more I watched Force Awakens, the less I want to watch it. It's
you can almost understand, regardless of what you think of The Last Jedi, you can almost understand Rian Johnson's decisions, because he probably felt like, you've given me nothing. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? There are all these loose ends. Where am I supposed to go with this? So rather than try and chase all these storylines that you have left, I'm just going to focus in on the thing that I find most interesting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe you're right. I don't know. But all I know is that in The Last Jedi, the most important thing that Ryan had to work with was Luke Skywalker.
Right.
And I don't think he made a very good decision on what he did with that character in that movie. And that's my biggest issue with that movie. Not to mention the drawn out space chase that made no sense whatsoever. And the whole Canto Bite thing, it's like the creative team lost their will at the time that Canto Bite thing ended. And they're just going to it looked really pretty on paper. And then we just kind of fuck, that was a bad idea. So we're just going to end the whole sequence quickly and just move on. So
I tell you what, there are times when I'm watching The Last Jedi, and there was actually one time where I skipped the Canto Bite scenes, because I was on top of my game that day, and so I watched it without the Canto Bite scenes, and it really felt to me, by just taking those out, forget about the length of the chase through space, it really felt to me like that was a film that actually wasn't directed by Rian Johnson, that was instead directed by the executive suite. And I almost feel like, and we saw it with Rogue One, which I think almost came out as a good film despite the executives at Disney. It almost feels like, when I watched it like that, it almost felt like Rian Johnson was the good soldier, and so Disney kept him on. Like, he gave them a film. It felt like, and I'm sure this is not how it worked out, but it felt like he came to Disney with the film and they said, "Oh wait, where's the cantina scene?" And he was like, "Oh, okay, I got to get a cantina scene. Okay, we'll go to a casino." Right? I know that wasn't the case though, because there is an underlying class argument throughout all of Rian Johnson's films. It's omnipresent when you watch Knives Out. He's very much aware of class and wealth and that kind of thing, and it runs throughout his films. But still, it just felt like the Disney executives were all over all of these films, and it's unfortunate. It's too bad that they didn't just hire some people to tell stories and then get out of the way.
Well, and Pete, what I think about when I see a scene like that from Canto Bite, it's like, where's the Star Wars universe not been that we're used to? Oh, Las Vegas. We've never been there. And so, or we've never been to Monte Carlo. So let's go there and let's shoehorn that in. It had no place really in the story. As far as movies I want to go back and rewatch from the Star Wars saga, I mean, Last Jedi, Rogue One is the only good one that they've done so far. And I love that movie. And I don't love everything about that movie, but I can, if you give me a pick of things to go back to watch tonight, that's going to be one of the top two choices, because I think the dynamic, I think the characters they had, the story they had between both of them, like I want to see more between Chirrut and, I want to see more of that. That's
Base.
I do actually want to see a Cassian series. So I'd be interested to see like what his life was like before Rogue One. Although I don't like them going back and showing a story of somebody ultimately is going to die in a Death Star blast. I mean, because we know their fate, but there could be an interesting story told there between him and Kate, which is another character that is I think a fantastic character that was created. And I
believe it's confirmed that he's in this.
K2S.
Which I mean, there were really good and strong characters in Rogue One. I mean, my wife even likes it, and she's watched it more than once, and she rarely watches movies more than once with me. And she likes that movie too. So I don't know. I'm disappointed by the sequel trilogy, but I was also disappointed a bit by the prequel trilogy. I've grown to appreciate the prequel trilogy a bit more because of the Clone Wars.
And also in retrospect now, when you compare it to the sequel trilogy, the prequel trilogy at least has a through line. It is
Well, it has a vision. Yes.
It has a vision.
It has a vision.
It's funny. We've heard multiple times that the reason that the reason he was convinced to come in and direct was because he was asked, who is Luke Skywalker?
Which
and
is
he
never
answered that question.
No, not at all.
That was the question that supposedly brought him in, and he never answered it. In
Yeah.
fact, he studiously avoided it in The Force Awakens.
Yeah. Yeah. And he just said, okay, maybe I'll answer it right in the last 3 seconds of the movie.
Right.
And then Ryan, you go ahead and answer that because I don't know.
Yeah.
And Ryan Johnson, just in my opinion, I understand, Pete, you made a good point why he made some of the decisions he made, but he still fucked it up, in my opinion, in a really bad way. Not that we had to see the wholesome, good Luke. I didn't expect to see that. I wanted to see maybe disturbed, wild, crazy Luke who had lost his way. That would have been better than what we got in Last Jedi.
Right, because obviously when Ryan got the story and he looked at it, he had to answer the question, why has Luke pulled himself away from the universe, from the galaxy, and hidden himself on a planet? You know, and you're right. How do you answer that question? Did he lose his mind? Did he grow disenchanted with the Force? And he does bring up some questions that he raised some things that we all had talked about. The Jedi by the end of episode 3 are pretty much despicable. They're not the heroes. There are heroes within the Jedi, but the Jedi Order is corrupt. And Mace Windu is, I mean, you know, he may be the baddest motherfucker in the galaxy, but Mace Windu is a piece of shit. He really is.
Braden, any thoughts?
You got an episode title right there. Mace Windu is a piece of shit.
Braden, any thoughts?
Hey, but his lightsaber is awesome.
No, not really. It's lavender.
Purple, motherfucker. Earmuffs.
Braden, any thoughts on what we're talking about? I know you're gonna have to go to bed.
For me, with the sequel trilogy, I really enjoyed Rogue One, and for me, I think Solo is underrated. I think it's an enjoyable, fun movie. I mean, I've watched it over this Corona break again, and I enjoyed it. I mean, it's just a fun, answered a lot of cool questions that we didn't really know before it. And for me, my favorite thing about the prequel trilogy is all the little things and connections outside of the movies that you can find on like YouTube videos or different things about Darth Plagueis and just little things, and especially with the Clone Wars, I think it really helped out. Like one of my favorite periods of Star Wars is around that Revenge of the Sith Clone Wars time. I mean, it's a very good story, and I'm not a big Attack of the Clones fan. I think it's a pretty boring movie to watch as far as
that's in last place. Just FYI, in my Star Wars movie rankings, the Attack of the Clones is the most painful one to go back and watch for me.
But I mean, I know the Phantom Menace is highly hated on, but for me, looking back at all the Star Wars movies that have been made, as comparing it to The Last Jedi and certain movies, and even to The Force Awakens at some moments, I think Phantom Menace is a decent movie to go back and watch. I mean, I love the Maul sequences. I love Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan's take on trying to train Anakin. I mean, I don't think anyone really enjoys Jar Jar, but I mean, I think the prequel trilogy is very, very good as far as its takes on different stories, and I think it was really hated on when it first came out, but I feel like some of the stuff that they've done nowadays has really kind of helped it not be hated as much as it once was.
All right, so let's put that out as next week's homework, since obviously we know we're not going to be talking about baseball. Next week in Star Wars talk, who's the one character in the whole, let's say, 11 film arc? We'll include Solo, we'll include Rogue One. Who's the one character that you would like to have seen explored more, or you would like to see explored more? All right, you don't have to answer it now, but think about it. Who would you like to see more of? And I'm not counting if they've been explored in the Clone Wars, because obviously we have seen some of Qui-Gon, but think it over. What character would you like to see explored more?
This is easy for me. I could say.
Okay,
it
but
now.
that's next week, Braden. That's
No,
next week.
he's Stugat, so he'll give it to you right now.
That's right. Hey, so quickly before we go out, guys, let me throw this around real quick because this has become something of an ongoing piece for us. What have you been watching in the last 7 days?
Schitt's Creek.
Yeah,
We finished it.
And
well, my wife watched most of the episodes. I'll just say it's a charming series, really funny. I reinforced my love for Catherine O'Hara as an actress. I think she's hilarious. Eugene Levy is great. I had never seen his son before. His son was great in the film, or in the whole series. But it was entertaining. But I probably wouldn't have watched it with such fervent frequency and depth, like 4 or 5 episodes a night. But we binged it, and it was pretty good.
Elliot, what about you? What have you been watching the last 6 days?
I rewatched The Mandalorian again, and I have restarted watching Stargate SG-1.
Yeah.
So for me, I did follow through on Dan and Elle's advice. Actually, small note: The Way Back was one of the last films that I was set to watch before the theaters closed down. I had tickets for that Tuesday night, and AMC sent an email saying, "Sorry, folks, we are refunding your tickets," which I had already paid for because I have AMC Stubs thing, so or A-list, so it didn't matter. But rented it for the $5. It was worth it. It was good. It was exactly like they described it. You're absolutely right, Elliot. It is like if Hoosiers followed
Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, Dennis. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dennis Hopper's character instead. But so it wasn't an outstanding movie, but the depth and the subtlety and the pain of Ben Affleck's performance is palpable. It was really an outstanding performance, and I have a feeling that because it was released in January, because it came out and got cut short by this whole quarantine and everything, it'll be overlooked when it comes back around to Oscar time. But I definitely think that, at least from what I've seen so far, it was definitely an Oscar-worthy performance. He was outstanding. He absolutely was. Best description I heard of it the other day was, usually when you see somebody play a drunk, they focus on the drunk being the drunk. And I think that that's probably such a normal part of Ben Affleck's life that he actually was able to focus on the pain that caused the alcoholism. And I think that was a really unique and interesting take. So if you guys have the time and the inclination, I would definitely recommend spending the money to rent it back. It's absolutely worth it.
Cool.
What do you say, Ron? Should I take us out?
Take us out.
All right, I will. And you know what? I'm going to give myself a little bit of a bed here. Just to wrap things up as we prepare for Star Wars talk next week. When we're not live on Facebook at Team of Rivals Podcast, you'll probably find us live on YouTube. You can find us online at teamofrivalspodcast.com. We're on Twitter at Team of Rivals Pod, and we're on Instagram at Team of Rivals Podcast. You can contact us by email at the show at teamofrivalspodcast.com. On Twitter, you can find Elliot at
TOR_Elliot.
You can find Ron at
TOR_Ron75.
And if you are watching us live, you can also catch us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, Radio Public, and Google Podcasts. If you do love this show, and we know you do, please leave us a review by going to ratethispodcast.com/TOR and follow the simple instructions. And finally, if you'd like some of your own Team of Rivals gear, I suppose you could click the store link at teamofrivalspodcast.com, and I guess you can get it from Zazzle.
I wouldn't do that. We'll find an outlet for T-shirts and stuff at some point in time, guys. But I'm not gonna put shit on Zazzle anymore. It's the worst quality. It was like if you made a shirt, put it in a cardboard box and buried it underground for like 30 years, and scientists recovered it. That's what you're gonna get from Zazzle. It is absolute dog shit. Don't buy it. Buy the other stuff on there. Other than that, this has been a unique night, unique situation. I look like the CNN anchors that are doing their broadcast from their home. I should. And I have not tested positive for COVID-19 yet. I'm keeping my BAC up to where it fends that off. So until next week, we love you all so, so much. We'll be back. Same time. All right. Bye, everyone.
Elliot, we gotta play our show game. I figured out.
He's talking over there.
I figured out how to go live on YouTube because I was playing an MLB The Show game
Why not? I'll just put it on
yesterday.
live.
So I can go live on YouTube. You and Pete can look up the broadcast and we can get going.
All right, sounds good.
I'm in a MLB The Show league right now with a bunch of guys too. So I've been taking names.
Taking names and what?
Yeah. I traded for Mike Trout and Nolan Arenado in one of my leagues.
Oh, nice.
I'm the trade master. What can I say?
I haven't gotten that in depth. I'm still making it through the ranks of AAA.
I got called up to the MLB already.
Guys,
Road to the show.
This is my fault. I should have muted him before. Pete, play the exit music one more time. Go ahead. Bye, everyone. Love you.